Welcome to the podcast. This week we have a guest. Kelsey Lensman is going to be joining us. She's a member over on our Grandview Barbell side. So if you guys come to the gym and you are here anywhere in the mid-morning time, you've definitely seen her around. She's in there training for about 2.5 hours a day, getting ready for a really cool, I wouldn't even call it an event. We'll get into it later. But we wanted to have her on to just talk about what she's got going on here. It's really interesting and really cool. But, first I'd just like to kind of ask Kelsey, what's your background? Like, how did you get into, you're a coach and a trainer, and how did you just kind of find your way into fitness in general?
Yeah. Well, first I just want to say I appreciate you both having me on. And I started here maybe about 6 months ago. So not that long ago.
Yep.
And when I first came here, it was the environment, the people were just good people here. And that's why, honestly, I say, I drive 35 plus minutes to come here every morning when I have a gym 5 minutes away.
That's the first thing I said, because that's how we met. I joined his gym and I'm like, these are just good people. Yeah. I'm staying. These are my people. It was after the first workout I did. So that's kind of funny that I've not heard anyone say it quite like that.
Oh yeah. I'm all about good humans. And I'm there's some good humans here. So
well,
I just appreciate you guys for the culture that you guys built here.
Yeah.
But a little bit about me. So I'm from Canton, Ohio, about 2 hours north. Okay. I grew up playing sports. So I was volleyball, basketball, all throughout high school. And then it was funny because I used to get letters of play here for basketball. I threw away every single letter. It was more of me I wasn't in a good headspace to want to go and play in college. So I was like, all right, nope, going to go have fun, do my thing. And so then I went to Ohio State here. And my freshman year, I was initially just going into physical therapy. And I thought, I could graduate in physical therapy. You can't graduate in physical therapy in undergrad. You find that out. And so then I went into sports medicine, athletic training. And my freshman year, I got a letter. I was approached by somebody. I can't remember who it was. And they're like, hey, do you want to join the rowing team at Ohio State? And I was like, rowing? On NER, get on the water? What do you mean here? They're like, no, we're seeing tryouts for rowing team. And I'm like, let's go for it. Let's just try it. So then tried out for the rowing team my freshman year, ended up making it. Have no idea how I made it. And that was one of the hardest things I've physically ever done up until this point. And even now with all the different comps I've done, that was...
I've heard it's really intense.
Oh, it is. So intense.
Especially at that level, at a collegiate level. I mean, rowers are badass. They're very tough people.
Mentally, physically.
Yeah.
And it was such a good thing that I didn't realize for the time, because that identity of being an athlete, that was my thing, and I didn't even realize it. And so when I went to college, I still had that identity, that team. And then after my freshman year, I kind of was brought with, hey, you either keep pursuing sports or you go the sports medicine route. You can't do both. You're either going to clinicals or you're an athlete. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be a professional rower. That's not my thing. So then I chose the sports medicine route. And I fully am grateful that I've chosen that route now. But in that time, it was such a hard moment for me, because I was the athlete. That was my identity. I had my team. Oh, now who am I? What do I have now, right? And so that was there's probably my sophomore, my junior year. Those were 2 very hard years, because I was going to clinicals, getting the A's, doing the things, but I lost myself. Yeah. I was like, who are you, Kels? And so then my junior year, after a pretty terrible breakup, just not a great relationship, I was like, all right, you're finding yourself again. I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh man, who is even staring back at me? And I was like, you're doing the one thing that you knew that started to actually develop your confidence again. That was get in the gym. And when I first got back in the gym, it would have been probably summer of my junior year. I had no idea what I was doing. You go from having all the workouts written for you, everything was planned out, to, okay, I walk in, what do I do? And even the confidence, oh man, I'm not an athlete anymore. How do I even do the things that I did before, And so then I just did it ugly. Call it all the time. I just did it ugly. I went in, had no idea what I was doing, was not the best form, but I just kept showing up. And then from there, that kind of twist and turned, and I started feeling that confidence again. I started feeling like myself again. You're doing something for you, not just giving to everybody else around you. And then that led to it would have been going into my senior year. I had somebody tap me on the shoulder and they're like, oh, have you ever thought about doing a bodybuilding show? And I was like, you talking about the shows where people wear those sparkly bikinis and like prance on the stage? Hell no. I don't know if I can guess on there, but no, like that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, we do all the time, yeah.
And so then it was like that seed planted in my brain of, okay, that's not you, right? Like I'm not somebody just to show off like that. But what if you could? Like what if you could go through the process to actually do it? And so I thought about it, and I finally came to the point where I was like, go for it. And so I ended up hiring a coach. This would have been my spring of my junior year, going into my summer. And I didn't tell anybody for 4 months. Like I think I might even have told Jared 2 months after I hired the coach, because I couldn't see myself ever getting to that stage, having the physique or doing the thing to get there. And so I did it underneath the scenes. I put in the work, had no idea what I was doing. And throughout that summer, it has nothing to do about the body that I built, but the discipline that you had to have, the intentionality, the discomfort that you kept pursuing when I went to pose in front of a group and I had no idea what I was doing in high heels. I never wear high heels. And through that summer, I started like feeling like a whole nother level version of myself that I didn't even know existed. So then that summer or that fall time, I competed in, I think it was like 4 shows, went to nationals. It was just such a cool time in my life where I'm like, I never thought I could ever do this. And I remember when I was going through that process, people would be like, oh, Kels, like there's this girl carrying her food again. Oh, I bet you have to go work out. You can't go to the bar. And it was a lot of going against what I was doing for so long. Like stepping out of that comfort zone, stepping out of the group, like somebody doing something different. And I got a lot of feedback from that in not a necessarily beneficial way. And so when I went through that process, I'll never forget this. And I tell our girls this all the time. Those same people that questioned me, those same people that tried to steer me off path, they're not bad people. They just didn't understand the lifestyle that I was living, right? They were the same people that asked me, like, how'd you do it? You know, those same people that came up to me like, oh, how'd you do that? And I was like, I didn't tell this to them, but I was like, well, I didn't listen to you, right? Like, I just didn't listen to you. So then fast forward, went through that season. Had my whole life planned out my senior year. I was like, all right, graduate undergrad, go to physical therapy grad school, have 2.5 kids, have a white picket fence. Like I had everything planned out. And then it would have been December of my senior year. So this is when everybody was getting grad school letters. Everybody was getting their jobs figured out. Like they had next steps. And I'm somebody that I had a roadmap, right? I always kind of had my stuff together of like, this is the next step. And I had this gut feeling. And I was like, what is this? Like, Kelsey, you should go to physical therapy grad school. Like you've said this for 8 years, you know? And I just had a gut feeling of like, Kelsey, there's something else out there different for you. And I so badly wanted to push it down. Like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what it is. Like, it's not a thing for me. And over that course of a few months, I was like, you have to listen to it, right? And I talk about my rocking chair theory all the time, which is kind of leads into everything that I do, is that version of me at 95 years old. I have this image. When I'm in my little rocking chair, I have my little blanket there in front of the fire, and I'm thinking back on my life, and I make so many decisions based on this like theory for me. And it's like, when I'm in that rocking chair, my greatest blessing would be you look back on your life and be like, oh, Kelsey, you did it. You didn't let fear, doubt, hesitation, anything hold you back. And my biggest fear, which is sometimes my biggest motivator, is I'm in that rocking chair and I think, what if? Like, what if you took that leap of faith? What if you went off path of what you thought you were going to do? And what if you didn't let doubt, fear, hesitation get in the way? And so I thought about that in that time frame, and I was like, Kelsey, you have to go for it. You have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea what business you're starting.
Sure.
But I saw a problem of I was in the sports medicine world, helping people overcome injuries after they've already had them. But then I was like, well, we could prevent injuries, right? Like if we can teach you how to move correctly beforehand, hopefully, you can't prevent everything, but hopefully you can prevent a lot of the injuries that I saw. And I saw them moving in the gym, and I'm like, oh, you just don't move well. Like, that's why your back hurts. You just don't move well, right? Yep. So I was like, all right, like, go for it. No idea what I was doing. No clue even what my big vision was. And so I started, it was called KML Movement, right out of undergrad. And I focused a lot on helping people move better, not necessarily injuries, like moving people out of pain, but preventing what hopefully could help people. And then that twist that turned, obviously, I mean, you know, owning a business, whatever you think your vision is, yes, it might be that for a little time, and then you really start to course correct a little bit. So then it would have been prior to COVID. Everything was in person for me. I was working with humans. I always wanted to do online or like something not necessarily bigger, but different than what I was doing. But I was just kind of in the rat race, like just going every single day. And then COVID happened. And it was like, oh, everything that you had, that ain't happening anymore. Like it's not a thing anymore, right? So it was almost like a blessing in disguise. Not that COVID's great, but it was a blessing in disguise for me, where it's like, Kels, that's that kick in the butt. Like you have to do it differently. Or you either do it differently or you let this thing that you've tried to grow for the last 3 years like die.
Yeah, you have to adapt or die. And that was,
exactly.
I mean, we saw that in our industry, and that's how we ended up here in this facility and bought this building and all of that. Like COVID was, it was good or bad, however you looked at it, but you had to change fast. Your story, it's really funny, you know, not to jump in the middle of it, but it mirrored Kate's almost exactly. Straight through like college. You know, she did like
I was exercise science. They didn't have sports med
when
I went.
She was exercise science.
State.
She did like the fitness show right at the end of school, the same exact way. Like like as you're just stepping through this, I'm like hearing Kate's story, like
that's wild.
Pretty damn close to.
And I
like,
thought the same thing, you know, to what you were like speaking to. I thought,
Very
I'm just going to do
similar
this show. It's not going to be a big deal. And I'm like, oh, this is changing me on the inside.
That was it.
And I'm like, this is wild. Like it really, and that's when I really got into like the nutrition. I was always like a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Like when I was in school too. So it's really cool to hear that. Yeah.
You guys
It's
had like
funny.
a very mirrored story, and she was going to go into physical therapy.
I was.
Same sort of thing. And then just like, you know, once she got out of school, went and did her training and coaching thing. And it was a very, it was just funny to like, I'm like listening. I'm like, man,
I heard the story before.
I know this story without like, I know almost where it's going. There's just very subtle differences.
But I mean, how cool is that though? I mean, by you stepping out, it's led to this, both of you, right? But like it's led to something that you might not have even thought about.
And it's cool that you didn't get wrapped up in the shows for too long. And my coach, as I was leaving, I was like, you know what? I just don't feel like these are healthy for me anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the coolest things he's ever said to me. I won't say who it is because he still does this, and I really have a lot of respect for him to this day. But it was just him and I training that day, and he's like, Kate, it's good you're getting out of this. You got a lot more going on. A lot of those people that stay in this for years and years and years, they can be beautiful on the outside, but inside it's all ugly.
Well, and that's exactly it though. So, and I'm nothing against bodybuilding.
Right,
like it's so much respect.
100%.
I have
a ton of discipline and but
that's what it was. And I think this is where also I bring my view of confidence is different than a lot of people. Not people, just social media really. Is I was the leanest I've ever been, the most ripped I've ever been, a body that I never thought I could get in my life. Like little Kelsey High School would have dreamed to be where she was at. And I stepped on my first stage ever. And I was getting first place. Like it was something that I never thought I could do. Yeah. And I was like, I've never been to the body that I thought I could get. And not that I lacked confidence, meaning that I was insecure, but it wasn't the confidence I thought I was going to have. It wasn't the, Kels, like you're on top of the world.
Well, the fitness show, it feeds off insecurity.
Yeah.
And we were just having this discussion the other night about like Ronnie Coleman or anyone that pushes themselves to the top. I mean, it's just, it doesn't work unless you are fighting some freaking demons. And like, no one's like, I feel so good. I want to like, and then, you get to a certain point where like, you take hormones or you don't take hormones and you don't play. Yeah. And I was like, and
it wasn't
tapping out. Yeah, I'm tapping out.
Exactly.
Like nah, no thanks.
Yeah. It wasn't my thing. Yeah. So then kind of fast forward, that's actually a good segue into the whole nother stuff. So started a business, competed for one more year, but I was like, I don't feel like I just want a competition to keep me on my stuff, like to keep me disciplined, to keep me focused.
And then it's tough because nothing motivates you like that.
It was hard.
Throw yourself on stage naked in some stripper heels and
go for it.
You're going to get your shit together.
Yeah, that's so true. So then that was and I didn't share this that much. I wish I would have shared it more, but that was a hard time for me. I started a business, had no clue what I was doing. You go from being very disciplined, seeing your body this way to transferring this way, and this way is more healthy, but it's hard to see your body change
it's really
like that,
hard,
you know? So then that's when I was like, all right, I need a goal. Got into powerlifting. I was like, oh, I like lifting heavy. Let's go into that. It didn't light me up as much as though bodybuilding because I think the discipline piece of it, I love that.
Yep.
And then just did a bunch of random stuff. Like did a power building show, did running. Like I just like pushing my limits. Like that's something that I love doing because never thought I could do this. Well, what else did I not think I could do, you know? So then kind of fast forward, COVID happened, flipped my business 180. Everything went online. And then that's where kind of our EmpowHER events were born. Our EmpowHER coaching was born, which is just online.
And we've had some girls from the gym do the powerlifting meets, and it's like that's their thing now. They love them.
Yeah,
like, it's really cool.
I mean, it just kind of goes to it. Actually, I remember being in the gym. This would have post-COVID, but it was one of our girls in the gym. A woman that never thought she would ever A, be in a gym, or B, be barbell benching, C, have the weight that she did on it. And I remember, this is literally where this EmpowHER Events was born. I remember unracking her, and she was scared shitless. Like, she looked at me, and she goes, you think I could do that? I was like, you got it. Like, believe in yourself. You got it. And so I unracked her. You could tell she was shaken. And then she brought the barbell down. Once again, this woman never thought she would even have a barbell in her hands. Brought it down, touched her chest, and boom. Like, that barbell went up. You might as well throw it to the sky. And you could tell as soon as she racked it, she jumped up off the bench, and her face was just, like, elated. Like, one, disbelief, and two, elated of being proud of herself. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I thought in my brain, I was like, Kels, we got to create an environment, not just a powerlifting federation, like an environment of women especially, I'm not anti-guy, but like for women to want to see each other win and to break beliefs of what they're capable of. Like the fitness world is a lot of times, and we coach people with all that stuff, but a lot of times about shrinking yourself, making yourself smaller. Like how tiny can you get? You see it on social media. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's not even about that. It's like, what are you actually capable of? And when you break that belief, like that woman broke that belief, it's like, oh, if I settled for that, like what else am I capable of in my career, in my family, in my personal life? And so then that's where it was born. I was like, we need to create an environment like that. And had no idea what I was doing once again. That's a common theme in my life. No clue what I was doing, but I was like, go for it, you know? So then that's kind of where the EmpowHER Event stuff, kind of where we're at today. So that was a long intro, but that's it.
No, well, you know, leading from that, we talked about it a little bit earlier, and a lot of why we're here is this event, Mission 48, that you're starting to gear up for now is probably fitness-wise like one of the craziest things I've ever heard, and I was just like, I was looking through her proposed schedule, and I don't know if it's finalized yet.
Yeah, it's tentative, but it's pretty much there.
So it's 48 days, 48 different states, so the whole continental U.S., and it's a different competition every day. So it's in September and October, and I was looking through it, and I'm like trying to physically pace myself through it in my mind. Like, okay, how'd you feel coming off this and then into that? And, you know, I'm going through the whole thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you've got to, this is going to get tough, like right about here, and then you've got to maybe settle into it. Yeah. And so, you know, tell us a little bit about how, you know, you came, like this whole idea came about, and like what you're trying to accomplish here with the
And
Mission
I have a
48.
question. Did you come up with this idea? This is all yours, the Mission 48?
I got the framework from somebody. We were talking about it, and I can share. But this was my idea, and it was one of those things. For 2 years, I sat on it, like 2 years. I doing the business stuff, and I had a gut feeling. I had a gut feeling of like, Kelsey, there's something more, right? Wanted to shut it down. I watched Iron Cowboy's documentary. And if you guys don't know who he is, he did the 50 Iron.
We watched that.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. I watched it like 5 times.
He's reminding me because sometimes half the time I forget what I've watched and then I've watched it.
We watched that.
I'm like, I'll be like 25 minutes into a movie. I'm like, oh,
I've
seen this before.
It was in a different state the same way, right?
Yeah,
but I do remember this.
Yeah,
it was really cool. Yeah.
Well, I fall asleep half the time through movies, so I get it.
So I wish I could use that excuse.
So he did 50 Ironmans in 50 states in 50 days, and I was just really inspired by that. I watched his documentary. I was like, okay, that's wild. Like Ironman's, so much respect, not my thing, but kind of where me, like I like pushing my boundaries. Like, well, what if, Kels? It's once again the what if question. Well, what if you did 48 different competitions? One day it could be a marathon, next day it could be a CrossFit event, third day could be a powerlifting meet in 48 states, and I originally had 48 weeks. And I was like, oh, cool, I could do a competition. I could speak at a school for girls. And, like, I'm really big about kind of getting them young and talking about confidence, talking about things that I wish I would have had. And so I had this whole thing not planned out, but this idea going for 2 years. And I finally got to a spot last September where I was like, okay, Kels, kind of like a come to Jesus moment for me. You're either doing this or you're not, and either's fine, but you have to make a decision. Like, you're not in this gray area of I'll get to it, you're never going to get to it. Like, make a decision. And I'll tell this quick little story about it too, because it was one of those things that I'm like, well, am I distracting myself? Am I just playing this little dream in my life that is going to take me away from help growing the business and stuff like that? And so I remember one day I was walking my dog Captain for like 4 hours. I was like wrestling, do I do it? Do I not do it? And I finally, not to bring this into it, but it's a kind of important part, I like wrote a prayer out. And I was like, dear God, okay, you need to smack me in the face with the biggest sign, like not dangle it, not like tap me on the shoulder. You need to smack me in the face of, Kels, go this route. So I was like, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like I'm like pulled for this. And have you know it, the following morning, went to train like I normally do. Usually I'll listen to music. Like, I'm not necessarily a big podcast girl when I train, especially like lift heavy. And I was like, you know what? Like, let me throw a podcast on. So clicked the first podcast. It was the Ed Milet show, and he had a guest on. And I was listening to it. Actually, I was just getting into weightlifting, Olympic lifting. No idea what I was doing, but I was like starting to do it. And it was this other gentleman, and he was sharing his story about all these different, he called them expeditions that he's been on. He trucked through Antarctica, solo mission through Antarctica, all himself. He did all these like crazy things that raised money for charity, and just talking about living your life, like not living in the passenger seat, like actually living. And it was such a mirror of what I wanted to do, and like the things that, like what I was feeling, very stagnant, very frustrated. And I'm like, all right, I got you. Like, you know, that was such a beautiful sign. I remember I was like squatting, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. And I had no idea what I was starting with, no clue even, how do you even start something like this? How do you even like take the first step? So I kind of took the first step, and then it's kind of led up today, and I have to put a deadline on things. Like, if I don't have a timeline, it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally kind of got to the end of last year, and I was like, all right, timeline's happening, September 1. And I was like, that puts heat on me to get the ball rolling and to actually like start putting things in place. So
that's awesome.
Very
That's
cool.
really neat. So you're renting an RV for like, for how long?
Well, we'll do it for we'll rent it for about 2 months, or we might buy one of the two. We'll wrap it, and we have a team of about 5 to 6 people going with us, and
awesome.
road tripping.
And are these like your employees that are going with you?
Or? Some of them are part of my team now.
Okay.
But some of them not. Like, a videographer is going to come. They're not a part of our team now, but we'll get that there, hopefully. And just some people that want to travel with us for a little bit. It's like hop on 5 states and then pop off. You're good.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So your team, do you guys just run powerlifting events then, or okay?
No, so we don't. So we have EmpowHER Coaching, which is like our online nutrition fitness coaching, and then we have our EmpowHER Events. I'm big about kind of, as this is, like pushing limits in all ways, not just. I don't want to pigeonhole us into just powerlifting. It's like show yourself you're strong in all areas. So this summer we're actually doing like a big running event. So I want EmpowHER Events to be like women of all different types, all different ages. We've had like a 72-year-old lift 200 pounds is crazy. Doing all these different competitions, not just powerlifting.
Yeah, so, really neat. That's awesome. That's really, really cool.
So how are you training for this?
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I was thinking
this is what
too.
a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people will talk about training and stuff on this, but I'm always like to geek out about like, what do you, what's your plan? So you've got, it's like 4 months
Don't
right
tell
now.
me that. Tell me still a year what?
Oh, you got, I mean.
It's about 4 or 5 months,
Yeah, you're in, and you're fit right now. So like, you know, a lot of it is like, you can keep getting fitter and in better shape, but you know, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What is like your plan leading up to that? And like, are you gonna like try and like take it easy for a little bit before? Like, what are you doing like specifically to like get ready for this?
Yeah. So it's funny. So you guys CrossFit Grandview. I've never done CrossFit. That's one thing that I've done bodybuilding, Olympic lifting, power, but like all this stuff I've never done CrossFit. Never done a CrossFit event. So that's when I was coming here too. I was like, oh, like I want to hop over there a little bit.
Yep.
But anyway, so about 3 weeks ago, could I potentially plan the training for myself? Potentially. Like, I'm not even gonna say I can't do it. But I was like, Kels, delegate it, you just execute. Like you just need to execute. You don't have to think about what you're doing. You do not know how to plan or how to do triathlons. Like, get somebody that knows what they're doing. So I ended up hiring a coach, did 3 weeks ago did all my baseline testing. So went everything from squat, bench, deadlift max outs to running a 10K, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I hate running. So I was like, Jared was with me, and I'm like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. So
that's that's 6+ miles, right? Yeah. That's not an easy run for someone who is as strong as you are.
For somebody that hasn't ran for 2 years, like I was thinking back, I was like, when's the last time you ran more than a mile? Oh man, like half marathon 2 years ago.
I've seen you pulling like mid threes on deadlifts in there, like to have both capacities is a challenge.
And mentally, I'll tell you that. Yeah. So then did that testing. It also opened my eyes to like, oh girl, like you got a long way to go in a beautiful way, but also once again, we talked about weeks, right? 48 weeks, how it was going to be 48 weeks. I was like, I could muster through probably with my fitness level. It's not amazing, but like it's an okay capacity. I could muster through a comp a week, right? It's not really like holding me to much of a line. Like I'm going to do well, obviously, but it wasn't anything crazy. But I was like, oh, 48 days. Like, Kels, that's another level. And it was, once again, that feeling of kind of, oh, shit, let's go for it. Like when you raise your standard that much, you cannot keep doing the same thing and pretend like it's going to get you there. So then that's where I hired a coach, told him all the things that we're doing. And it's right now. So I did pre-testing about 3 weeks ago. These last 2 weeks, I've been actually like in the training. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done, like in such a cool, beautiful way. It's things I've never done. It's trainings. I'm going usually twice a day and like doing a ton at the track, doing a lot of heavy lifting here, doing a lot of Olympic lifting, doing a lot of CrossFit stuff that I'm like, how in the heck do you do all this stuff? But it is holding me to such a higher standard, and I can tell it's pushing my limits. Like it's pushing me physically, 100%. I've never been so sore in my life, but it's pushing me mentally. Like you have to figure out how you're going to operate your business and get 4 hours of training in a day and be the coach that you want to be and be the like dog mommy, like all of these things, and it's expanding my capacity. Like it's definitely putting some heat on me, but it's like, all right, you either rise to the occasion or you don't, and either's fine, but like, I'm going to rise there, So it's pretty cool training. It's keeping me on my toes. I'll tell you that.
The more you do, the more you can do.
Exactly.
I've heard that a lot of times, and it's very true where the least productive times in my life are like the times I've had the most just like time, and like, going to the bank is like a challenge when you have nothing on your plate. And then when you've got this, that, and you're just running and gunning, like, throw a few monkey wrenches in there and they're not as hard to deal with because you're just used to dealing with stuff all the time.
Yep.
So it's cool to like start to figure out like what you are capable of. People are much more productive and capable than they know oftentimes.
Oh, and it's so true. I mean, it stretches you, right? And and I think I talked with somebody about this of like, could it be overwhelming? 100%, right? But you have to understand, what do you have to change? Like what is in my control? How do I have to live life differently? It's not that I have to do this for the rest of my life, but like these next 4 or 5 months need to be very regimented, need to be very disciplined, need to be very focused. And so I'm not going to go out and spend all the time with my friends. I don't like, not that I would go
you're
to
not
a bar all the time,
you're not
like
entertaining yourself the same way you would. You're not going to watch movies and things all the time and get into shows, and you don't have the time, effort, and energy to be able to do
and I imagine you probably felt this too, like when you did bodybuilding, it was so disciplined that it sounds, they say discipline equals freedom. Jocko, I love his stuff, and it's so true, and you don't understand it until you've actually been there and get it. And when I was doing those shows, it was discipline, and that's the time I felt most alive. Like most alive is when I was most disciplined, and it's so contradictory, I think, to what especially social media tells you and like the culture today. It's like, well, just take it easy and like do that. It's like, I felt half alive when I did that, you know, and I got roped into that a little bit of that mentality. And I people feel the difference in me. They see the difference in me. Kelsey's like, or somebody was like, Kelsey, you look more alive in the last 3 weeks than you've been in the last 4 years. I'm like, I feel it. I was like, because it's pushing that capacity, you know?
And you have a focus and a purpose, and you've like committed to doing a very big, audacious thing. So when you start rowing in that direction and getting that momentum, like you feel it's a really cool feeling. And I've felt that way with a lot of different things in my life. That's super cool. So if people want to follow this or even follow your journey, like leading into this, like what are easy ways? I mean, Instagram. So you have a very cool active Instagram page. Like I love it because it shows.
I know that's not great.
No, it shows cool stuff and like our barbell gym too. So I'm like, ooh, share that. That's a cool, that's a really cool video showing the gym in there, and then you're doing really cool stuff. So your Instagram and then anywhere else that you
so Instagram, I mean, that's the most thing I'm active on.
Yep.
And then it's not right now. We'll launch, I don't know when this will come out, but June 1. And then we're going to do YouTube a ton. So that'll be, we'll do like a big video each day.
Like long form stuff.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
We'll do long form, short form. So that'll be definitely ramping up. Like right now, Instagram is the most important.
Well, awesome. Anything else you want to share with us? Like, I think this is super inspiring to me. Like, anytime I hear like someone doing something, it's like, okay, like I had some cool goal. Like I did a boxing fight last year and had a very similar, like fun ramp up to that.
Yeah.
And then I haven't had anything like that, real recently. And I'm like, I need to find something, to like get me going again. And so like hearing about this, like, is really cool. So
you guys can train with me. I need a buddy anytime that I can.
I don't think my Y's that big right now.
Yeah, same. That's awesome.
Very cool.
I'm on the other side of pushing my body.
Yes, I get that for sure.
I've spent a lot of time in Colombia. I would just tell my clients this week, like in MRI machines and hyperbaric chambers, and like, there was a lot of times for at least like a decade, I think I probably pushed through too much and saw the other side of that. So I think it's amazing what you're doing, but this is my time to like slow down and go within and work through emotional stuff.
And that's, I mean, I don't mean to like lean into that, but that is just, in my perspective, just as much training as it is physical.
It's hard.
It's
easier for me to go out and run and tear up my body. It's harder for me to sit like I have like these type of healers that I see, and everyone's like, you need to sit still.
Yes.
Sit still, do nothing. It's really easy for me to go.
Especially for like a high performer like you. Like that's our normal, right? Like that's how we operate. And so shifting to the other end of the spectrum is like, no, just breathe and like just be there. You don't need to be achieving to have your worth. Like it's a whole nother journey. It all comes in time,
right? And you've got to like go after and do these things when you feel called to. And I think it's really cool how you just keep coming back to like trusting your intuition. I think that's freaking awesome.
There's times for expansion and contraction, and there's waves that you have to ride, especially the longer. We're 20 years into this now, so I've ridden a bunch of these waves where it's like I have to have a time to simmer down for a little bit, and then I'll have 4-5 years of like really white hot training and competitiveness and business expansion. And then it's like, okay, I have to live for a little bit and breathe and maintain and let my mind, body, and spirit sort of like regenerate. And, we've kind of hit that spot where we had that huge, like, go all out to get this whole thing to survive COVID. And then we had a big, it was like a celebration year. We got in like fantastic shape. Did some like photo shoots, and I did boxing matches, and we did like the pump and run. We did all these things. And then we're like, So we
keep adding things. Like we have our retreat this year. We have like summer shred we're doing. So we have all these things we do. It's awesome, but we never take away, we're adding.
We have annual rituals with the, so we do summer shred, and that's 6 weeks of offsite. Like we're running all over the place. And then we do like, our annual Murph workout. And then now we've added this, retreat, and we have the open and all of these things that now it's stacked up. It's very cool, but it's, it's 6 to 8 events, and then, some that last 6 weeks. And so it's, you've only got a month of time between them. And now it's like, okay, we have to just at least stay to where we're participatory in these, not necessarily like PRing all of them, but we're like, we got to stay in there where we're like healthy, fit, and focused enough to just be a part of it. And And then once we like find a rhythm with that, and then that's when we'll usually like try and blow back up. But what you're doing is like, I mean, it's a very one of a kind thing. I've never heard of anything like that outside of the Iron Cowboy, but this is like really diving into a lot of different capacities rather than just like, you know, say you did 48 powerlifting meets or, you know, it's very cool to see, you know, it's almost this CrossFit mentality of like showing a very varied, you know, capacities over all these things all over the place. And it's just like, I'm excited to follow along with it, and I can't wait.
That's going to be like our TV show. We can watch you on YouTube.
What's this crazy girl doing today?
Yeah. How can people support you with this? Are you raising money, or do you have a place that people can do that?
Yeah, so we have like Mission 48. So I'm going to do it also for Rocks. It's a charity, amazing charity. If you guys haven't actually looked into it, they like do 20-week programs in schools for girls. Talk about self-confidence, body image. I've spoken to so many Rocks girls. And the teachers are like, we see a difference in them. So I was like, all right, like if we can like bring awareness to that a little bit. So like we'll have a goal for that if people want to be a part of that part of it. And then Mission 48, we have state sponsors and then also regional sponsors. So any and all help is definitely appreciated. So I appreciate it.
Do we go to a website?
Yeah, I'll give you a website, just KelseyLensman.com. You'll see a button called Mission 48.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Be on the lookout.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord, you'll see me here just like dying in a corner, but it'll be good.
All right. Hey, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, I appreciate both of you, and I know I speak for the gym. Appreciate the culture that you guys build and just the community that's here. That's what keeps me here. So I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Very cool.